speaking of mental health, which of course is very important, Jay, let's talk about this article that Eddie Kingston wrote recently. It was published in the Players Tribune. The article is called "Eddie Kingston Got No Business Fucking Being Here" by Eddie Kingston.
I love that title.
I know. It's so, I mean, that right there, it disarms you and it makes you want to read more about his story. And I think it was a great art. I sent this to you.
Super intriguing.
Yeah, I know. It talks about his upbringing as like a biracial child growing up and growing up a very angry kid, getting in fights and stuff, getting kicked out of school for starting fights, and talking about how he fell in love with wrestling at a young age.
Saved his life pretty much.
It seems like it. And on more than one occasion, it saved his life too, because it talks about how, him coming through wrestling and everything and the emotional depths he had been through and is dealing with his depression, which he was still not even aware of what it really was for a very long time. It took like Larry Sweeney to write a letter to him to get him out of his depression at one point, to get him to talk to people. Talks about how Brody Lee impacted his life as well in wrestling, and just how he kept grinding and sticking with it just because it was all he knew.
Right.
And talking about how the pandemic hit and he almost lost everything. And then after cutting a promo at this backyard show, essentially, that video gets in the hands of Cody Rhodes. He gets brought into AEW. He's told to just cut a promo on Cody apropos of nothing, and a star is born after 18 years, and talks about how it dawned on him and everything that was happening to him, all these good things, and how like the wave that came over him, and how he started crying over this revelation. Like, it's a really beautiful story, and I think it's so important to hear stories like Eddie Kingston, because wrestling is historically a very macho business, and the topic of mental health, and men especially dealing with mental health, is something that's only now we're scratching the surface of.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and it's real.
Yeah.
It's very real. I mean, I don't care to even to comment and say it or not. I'm a man. I cry from time to time.
Yeah.
If there's a situation going on or something like that, that's real. And speaking of real, let me tell you this right now. I don't know if I've ever said it on the channel or not, because it's not like I talk much about AEW. You do. But I think that Eddie Kingston, and this is his appeal in my opinion, is he's just like he's the realest character maybe in professional wrestling.
I absolutely agree. I have to admit, when I first started this channel, I didn't know much about Eddie Kingston. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't get Eddie Kingston back then. I just looked at him and he's this out of shape looking guy who does a spinning back fist. What's so special about him? It wasn't really until the last couple of years that I really finally got a sense of like who he is and like why people like him so much and why he's been so endearing for as long as he has.
Right.
It finally has clicked with me now. I finally get it, and I appreciate him so much now in wrestling compared to what I did when I first started. It's just so great to see his story, and like it just proves you, no one's path in wrestling is the same. It's never guaranteed, but if you work hard enough and you're good enough, man, good things are going to happen. And that's kind of what we're seeing with Kingston here. And like, I think again, going back to the mental health thing, the fact that like you got these tough guys like Eddie Kingston, who's talking about these like really serious issues, these suicidal thoughts and the mental health struggles he's been through, and how he has to take Zoloft, to stay in check and everything. How Hangman Page's whole story arc is him overcoming his insecurities and his self-doubts about himself, and he's coming through that a stronger individual. Mm-hmm. Like, two of the biggest baby faces in AEW right now are very much not like stereotypical macho tough guys, absorb everything and just keep on going like action heroes, They're real people with real like depth to them and real things going on in their lives. And it's so relatable. And I think that's the mark of any great hero in wrestling, is relatability. And so when you've got these guys who are going through so much of the same stuff that we all go through every day as just citizens of the world, it's beautiful. I think it's so refreshing to see that in wrestling right now. It's refreshing to have guys like Eddie Kingston telling their stories and talking about like you can be better, you can recover, you can make a change in your life, and it's all about the people and the support system who back you up. I'm getting a little verklempt thinking about it right now, how beautiful the story is. And like it's weird to hear it described like that, but it is. It's really great to hear his story, and if it inspires just one person to reach out and get out of their funk, like that's the best thing. I'll tell you what, my brother-in-law, who does not watch wrestling at all, like he's a fan of Eddie Kingston now because he stumbled upon this article.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, and like I think that's great. That speaks to the power of Eddie's story. It's the fact that a non-wrestling fan like my brother-in-law can see that and text me last night, what do you think about this Eddie Kingston guy? He seems pretty cool. I'm like, that's amazing.
Right.
You know, that is going to draw more people to wrestling, I think, in the modern age. Not so much these larger-than-life stars, but more the relatable stars.
Right. And that's because that's what, in all honesty, that's what made Stone Cold so big back in the 90s, is he was so damn relatable. Everybody wanted to say, you know, fuck your boss.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, everybody wanted to do that.
Right.
And run all over him.
And now in these modern times, it's not so much that kind of character. I mean, in a way we do now, especially with this wealth disparity we're going through and the ever shrinking middle class. But there are definitely some relatable things about that. But it's I think more now than anything, it's the relatability of how we're all going through this crazy world together. And you're not alone. You don't have to be alone. There are ways to get help. And that's the biggest takeaway I got with this article, and it just makes me love Kingston even more now. And damn it, I want to see him beat CM Punk on Saturday.
Yeah, you know.
Want to hear more? Subscribe to This Week in Regret on YouTube for full episodes of the podcast, dropping every Thursday night. Don't forget, we're also on SoundCloud.